The Legend of Zelda The Minish Cap has these little medallions called kinstones. You'll find lots of half pieces throughout the game, and you can match these with NPCs to trigger special events in the overworld. You might open a path, spawn a chest, or even call a new character into town. The effects are nice, of course, but that very act of matching the kinstones stands out to me. This is how I view the Minish Cap in general, as a perfect fit. For my money, 2004's The Minish Cap has the best gimmick for its platform, the beloved handheld Game Boy Advance. Since you're watching this video, there's a near 100% chance that you're already familiar with the Legend of Zelda series, but I wouldn't be doing my due diligence if I didn't at least give a quick overview. The globally beloved games have been around since the first adventure on the NES in 1986, and they've been a staple of Nintendo platforms ever since. Each one features a hero named Link, or whatever you happen to name him, a princess named Zelda, and plenty of other recurring motifs. Every entry has its big opening moment, a conniving villain, and just about every time, a unique, defining gimmick. Think Twilight Princess's wolf transformation or A Link to the Past's Dark World. In this case, it's the titular Minish Cap, which shrinks Link down to a teeny tiny size. Link doesn't start the game with that signature hat on his head, though he is at least wearing the traditional green garb. That isn't always the case in Zelda games, but you can usually expect a nice art style and soundtrack too. In this case, there were some lavish 16-bit graphics and killer lo-fi tunes. While that plays, let's talk about the plot. In this version of Hyrule, there's a mythical race of mouse-sized people known as the Picori, or as they call themselves in their own language, the Minish. We start at the annual Picori Festival, and it just so happens to be its 100th anniversary. That's the perfect time to hold a sword fighting tournament, and the perfect time for things to go horribly wrong. Turns out the winner of the competition is actually an evil sorcerer named Vaati. Now where have I heard that name before? Anyway, Vaati is seeking something known as the Light Force, and he'll go as far as possessing the King of Hyrule and turning Princess Zelda and all her guards into stone in order to find it. Our young Link is sent off to the Minish Woods to find a solution to this problem. It's there that we meet Eslo, the titular Minish Cap himself. Now, every Zelda game's gimmick is linked to its plot in one way or another, but I love how much it dovetails here. Eslo doubles as our wisecracking companion and the means by which we shrink down to the Picori's size. Link still has to learn their language though. Forget Duolingo. All he has to do is eat a jabbernut and he's instantly fluent. Let me just say, as someone who speaks 2 languages myself, eu queria que fosse tão fácil. Enfim. To make this Minish connection even deeper, we learn later on that Eslo and Vaati were actually both Picori people themselves. Vaati stole Eslo's wish-granting hat in order to become the sorcerer he is today, and then he transformed Eslo into a different hat. There's something almost Shakespearean about that. With Eslo on our heads, we can explore Hyrule from a whole new perspective. This shrunken sense of scale is achieved in 2 ways, with a pint-sized Link on the regular screen, or a regular-sized Link in the secret Picori places across Hyrule. It's the proverbial hidden world beneath our feet. From a design perspective, this concept works wonders for the in-game map. This is a portable Zelda game, so it doesn't have the same scale as a Wind Waker or Breath of the Wild. How could it? Yet the teams at Capcom and Flagship managed to cram so much into this square. We've got forests, rivers, mountains, marshes, the classic Lake Hylia, and even a full-on sky zone, populated by a race of magical cloud people. Take that, Skyward Sword. You might have noticed the grid-like design of that map. It's not exactly a true square grid, which is what Link's Awakening, Oracle of Ages, and Oracle of Seasons use, but it is geometrically similar. The key difference is that each of these zones aren't perfectly square, and upon clicking into any of them, you can pan the camera around to get the true lay of the land. But the map still has these grid-ish constraints. Everything fits into the shapes you see carved out here. Everything except the shrunken down Minish spots, that is. You see, the overworld map might be condensed from a human perspective, but for the Minish, it's massive. For every small single home in Hyrule Town, there's a little hidey hole or a series of rafters that holds a whole secret society of Picori, living right alongside everyone else. To some of us, these towns might be tiny medieval-like settlements, but to the Picori, they're major metropolitan sprawls with thatch-roof skyscrapers. It's a bit ironic, but by shrinking the player down, the Minish Cap actually provides a much larger, layered world. Even whole dungeons fit into this scheme. The Deepwood Shrine was once a meeting place between humans and Minish, and this forest-themed dungeon is the first one Link has to conquer in his adventure. Number 4 is the Temple of Droplets, an ice dungeon that Link can only enter by shrinking down. In both cases, he'll also have to deal with an extra chunky choo-choo. There are some amazing reveals in this game that only work because of Link's smaller size. What would normally be a basic one-hit enemy can be a formidable boss just because of the scale. Instead of using a simple sword slash or firing an arrow to stop this slime, we have to use the Gust Jar to knock him off balance before whacking away. This green one serves as the final boss of Deepwood Shrine, while an electrified blue version shows up halfway through the Temple of Droplets. As you saw before, this dungeon is really just a cracked block of ice floating in the middle of Lake Hylia. Before you're able to enter, it's likely that you'll spot it in the corner of the screen. You might see it sitting there and wonder, wait, what is that thing? Can I get in there? And in a lot of cases, the answer is yes. In classic Zelda fashion, you'll see all sorts of inaccessible doors and special objects that you can't interact with until you unlock the appropriate item. Some of that stuff is well-tread ground, like cracked walls that are just begging to be blown through with bombs. But the Minish Cap also brings some new ideas to the table, like a pair of mole mitts that dig through dirt walls, or these glowing pads that let Link split into multiple copies of himself.
Take that for nope, wait, that game was first.
As you might have guessed, the most common of these special moments are meant for the Minish. There are plenty of little holes that house them inside of other buildings, but you can also find small dirt paths and tiny climbable vines that can only be explored when Link is in his diminutive form. There's an aha moment when you figure out what all these things actually are. The first time you shoot an Igor with an arrow or use the Cane of Pachi to launch yourself out of a hole, you should be proud of yourself for figuring out the mechanic. The same goes for every time you discover a hidden Minish living somewhere in the world. Sometimes they're the only ones who can enter an area that doesn't even belong to them, like the inside of these robots. To make it through the Wind Ruins in the southwest corner of the map, Link will have to deal with these derelict guardians. Solving this puzzle requires him to shrink down, enter their metal helmets, and either power them on or shut them down. This is a microcosm of Minish Cap's puzzle solving at large. I love how it's used throughout the game. There are so many instances of shrinking down and scaling back up to clear a room or reach a new destination. You can only climb Mount Krenel by collecting special spring water from a small green pond that would otherwise only be a puddle. And when you reach the peak, you'll have to dodge boulder-sized raindrops on your way to some treasure. If I may bring up Deepwood Shrine again, that dungeon features a rolling barrel in its central room. Link has to rotate it like a hamster wheel, using the holes in the barrel to enter and exit at different angles. Full-size Link smashes pots and breaks barrels like no one's business. But for Mini Link, a regular barrel can become a giant chamber that serves as the focal point of an entire dungeon. By simply playing with scale, the game gives us new puzzle formats and remixes of existing ideas. The Fortress of Winds has these rollers that Link can simply outrun or duck under using these little holes. But to a Minish, those holes are basically bottomless pits, so in his smaller form, Link will have to actually run between the two rollers to get clear. In the Palace of Winds, he can easily leap over them with the Rock's Cape, or dodge both the rollers and the pits yet again. Speaking of windy areas, remember those robots from before? Well, they were just the warm-up. The boss of the following dungeon is Mazal, who's the ultimate version of these constructs. You'll have to weaken him with arrows before entering his Robo Skull to pummel the pillars that keep him powered up. This is such a fun way to incorporate both of your sizes into a boss fight, and the concept comes back around for the final confrontation with Vaati too. Bosses and puzzles alike are given a complete refresh simply by playing with the scale.
Okay, now I need to actually talk about this thing.
You can apply a lot of what I've said here to pretty much all Zelda games. They're known for their gimmicks, and how those change how you interact with the world and engage with the story. Ezlo, the literal cap, is firmly baked into the plot thanks to a shared history with Vaati. From a gameplay perspective, the shrinking mechanic redefines the overworld map, the little secrets scattered all around, and the way we solve individual puzzles. The icing on the cake is that all of that happens on the Game Boy Advance. Now, the Minish Cap is far from the first portable Zelda game, and it had a few after it too. Phantom Hourglass on the DS has an infamous puzzle that only works because of its clamshell design. And really, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are as portable as you want to make them. I'm not saying all of this to defeat my point. On the contrary, there is so much competition in the portable Zelda space that my claim that Minish Cap has the best gimmick out of all of them is made that much bigger. Those other ones might be good for some Zelda on the go, but if you're playing in bite-sized chunks, then a bite-sized Link just makes sense. If you're gonna fit a Game Boy Advance into your pocket, then a Link who could also fit into your pocket is the perfect match.
Little Link, little handheld. You get it, right?
There were portable Zeldas before and after this one, but the zenith was Minish Cap on Game Boy Advance. Or the SP, if you're nasty. I love this whole series, but for me, it's that combination of a smaller adventure and a smaller Link that makes Minish Cap that much bigger and more memorable. It's a perfect fit, just like those matching Kinstone pieces.
Hey, thank you so much for watching this video. If you like what I'm doing here on Framework, please hit that subscribe button in the middle. It would help me out an awful lot if you do. And if you want to check out what I've already cooked up, you can hit that link on the far left. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.